Hi, welcome to Judaism Part 3. I'm sorry that there is so much information for Judaism, but it happens to be the area that I really like, and biblical history, because it's historical, takes a really long time. But we'll get there. I think there's only two more parts for this, and then all total, that'll just be an hour of me talking. So I'm sorry. All right, let's get to it. Let us go to Judaism. All right, so the Romans take over. They destroy the Second Temple because they believe that Jews, like Christians, are traitors to the empire because everyone must swear allegiance to the Roman emperor. And since both Jews worship, they worship Yahweh, Christians worship Jesus, they end up being kind of martyred for their cause. So part of the punishment on the Jews is the destruction of the Second Temple in 70 CE. And when that happens, the Jews, of course, once again, oh no, our covenant is broken, our temple is destroyed, the kind of the cornerstone of their new focus after the exile. What should we do? We have to reassess our religion. And then they realize the one thing that can't be taken away, of course, is the text or the story of the people. And that is what they focus on today, the story of the Jewish people, the traditions, the law, the covenant, etc., all found within the text. So that is what they focus on now, and that is what's called rabbinic Judaism, where the focus is on the rabbi or the teacher of the text. The temple no longer becomes central. All the sacrifices and rituals and things like that, because there's no centralized temple, all of that gets thrown out as well, which is like a tidy chunk of the Bible. Also, they would love to have their promised land of Israel, but in their recent history with the Assyrians and the Babylonians and the Persians and the Greeks and the Romans, everyone's just coming in and taking over, so that's not a guarantee either. The one true guarantee is the text. So of the four groups, Sadducees, Pharisees, Essenes, and the Zealots being the reason why the Romans were cracking down, the Pharisees are really the only one to remain and to go into the rabbinic period. They get rid of most of the rituals and sacrifices, but they do keep a couple of agricultural gifts. There's a real stress on purity laws or laws to maintain that covenant with God, because that's pretty much all you have. And then texts or learning the text become the central focus of this new, kind of rejuvenated Judaism. Okay, so between the 2nd to the 10th century CE, because rabbinic Judaism is no longer restricted to either the Promised Land or a centralized temple, it starts to spread through what's called the Diaspora. So if you look at the map, here's the Diaspora, here's where, here's Jerusalem and Judea, and it starts to spread through Turkey into Europe that way, and also across North Africa. So essentially all the way around the Mediterranean, kind of the same route that early Christians would take. Early Judaism spread. By the time we hit the 10th to the 15th century, which is medieval period, we have all these different Jewish communities kind of located throughout the ancient Near East or the Near East, North Africa, and Europe. The major areas are in France and Germany. There's large populations there. And then, of course, there are Jews of Spain, the Near East, North Africa, Eastern Europe. So by the time we hit the medieval period, you really have two categories of Jews. The Ashkenazi Jews, which are Western European Jews, and the Sephardic Jews, who are the Jews of Eastern Europe, the Near East, Russia, and North Africa. And then you can see the descriptions of that, right here. So make sure you take a look at that. The one kind of problem in medieval Judaism is everywhere they went, they were basically the minority religion of that country. They didn't have a homeland. So whenever they would go into Europe, that's predominantly Christian. Whenever they went into North Africa or the Near East, that's predominantly Muslim at this point. So really, they were always facing constant persecution and exclusion. Other things developed in the Middle Ages, Jewish philosophy, mysticism, and you still have the idea of Jewish messianism. One thing that Jews and Christians have in common is they both believe in the Messiah, meaning there will be someone who will come back. Frequently in Judaism, they say that might be Moses, or that might be Elijah the prophet, or just an unnamed Messiah. And Christians were basically Jews who believed their Messiah had come and left. So early Christians were just Jews that believed in the Messiah figure, much like, Judaism today. Judaism today don't believe the Messiah has come. Christians of the early time period were Jews that believed their Messiah had come, Jesus Christ, gave them the message that they needed, and then left. So both religions believe in the Messiah figure. Judaism just doesn't happen to believe that he has come. All right, so as we go into modern Judaism, keeping in mind that Judaism has now spread throughout the world and, predominantly around the Mediterranean, but everywhere they went, they were always the persecuted minority. Two issues that shape the modern world, and I would love for you to read this little brief thing about the emancipation. Basically, what happened in Europe was that during the medieval period, there was a system in place called corporate feudalism, where groups were judged according to, people were judged according to what group they belonged to. So this idea of corporate or group rights is something that Jews are actually quite comfortable with. And they were almost like a union because they controlled a lot of like banking and finance, not because they are obsessed with money, which is the stereotype, but because the church couldn't do banking and finance because it's against Jesus's teachings of usury. Like you can never loan money for a profit. So Christian institutions are obligated kind of by church law to be non-profit. So any sort of banking or finance had to be left for another religious group, and it just so happened it was like the only thing left for the Jews to do, So they were weirdly protected under this corporate feudalism system, and then with the emancipation is the introduction of democratic ideas into feudal, Europe, which kind of shattered the corporate feudalism system and introduce the idea of, individual liberties. Every person is equal. Every person has rights. Now, on paper, you would think that would be great. Like, that would work really well for the Jews. But in fact, it doesn't. Because what it did was lift up millions of people who were being disenfranchised by the corporate feudalism system and were now given rights to basically hate whoever they wanted, And the target, because a lot of people were financially bereft, at the bottom of that feudalism pile, it was easy to turn to the Jews and blame the Jews for the lack of money that one might have as a European democratic individual liberty person. So oddly enough, when the corporate feudalism system shatters and democracy comes in, there is a rise of anti-Semitic behavior where Jews are then, who had already been persecuted in Christian countries and Muslim countries, then become the target of persecution even more because they were seen to be the controllers of the economy. So anti-Semitism rises, which leads directly into the second major modern issue for Judaism, and that is the Holocaust. So once again, I would encourage you to read these things right here. There's a link for the Holocaust information. Essentially, I will let you read all of this information about kind of the timely, incremental increase in anti-Semitic behavior that progressed up to and through World War II. Essentially, what happened was Jews were already targeted. Jews were already excluded. Jews were already blamed for a number of things that weren't their fault. And what happened was people just never said, hey, this is wrong. So when an entire political party in Germany, the Nationalsozialist, or the Nazi Party, begins to make this rather than like a social or cultural thing where you just hate Jews because of X, Y, and Z, they basically made it propaganda and part of their political agenda, part of a national agenda. So systematically, you can see when you read this, There is a steady disenfranchisement of the Jews to the point where they're no longer even seen as human, and that's where the gassing happens, and the camps and the forced death marches, where a whole country can get to the point where they actually consider an entire group of human beings not even worth even being recognized as human. So that's what the Holocaust is devastating, because of that at what point do you cease to see the humanity in another person? You're going to be watching a video by Elie Wiesel talking about that, because he survived the Holocaust in one of the camps as a child. And just like how one recognizes or reconciles the idea of a God that allows something like this to happen to his people, right? So make sure that you look at this, and also make sure that you watch that video and do that assignment. This brings me to the modern period, where essentially post-Holocaust, there are 4 branches in modern Judaism. The Reform, which is kind of the most liberal, this is the only one you can actually convert into. The Orthodox, which are the traditional, what are called Hasidic Jews. They really retain the traditional Jewish laws, and might be the descendants of the original rabbinic Jews and also the Ashkenazi Jews. They might be the precursors to the Orthodox. Conservative Jews are a lot of the Jews that you find in the United States are conservative Jews. They are kind of the Western European Jews, where they dress modern dress, but keep Hebrew in the liturgy. They're very engaged within their community. It's not like, oh, we only hang out with ourselves. In fact, one of the kind of the precepts of conservative Jews is we are one with those around us. So frequently the rabbi of a conservative temple will sit on the school board, or be on the town committee, and everyone it's a socialized to say we are part of the larger world around us. Reconstructionist Jews, pretty recent, they see Judaism as an evolving civilization, so it's more of like an ethnic identity rather than a chosen religion. That means that there's great flexibility in terms of how you identify with the deity, with a God of Jews. So it's a pretty small branch, by the way. And then Zionism it's not necessarily a branch of Judaism, but more like a movement. Zionism is a return to Israel, or the Promised Land. After the Holocaust, one of the war reparations that was done for and on behalf of the Jews was that they would get Israel back. But unfortunately, there were people living there already, Palestinian Jews, Palestinian Arabs, Palestinian Christians. And that was the start of a whole other conflict, right? Who lays claim to what land over in Israel? So Zionism really is a movement to return and reclaim that promised land. And it has many, many supporters in the United States, just both spiritually and culturally, and financially. And it really is for those Jews, or even non-Jews, that see Israel as the Holy Land of only the people of Israel, as in the Jews. Okay, so I'm gonna stop there. That's all of the history. I really do, assume that you're going to be reading all the information on the PowerPoint, including all those detailed facts about the Holocaust. The 9 parts of Judaism, before you watch this, the next video, make sure you read Smith, because he lays out the 9 parts of Judaism pretty clearly, and I only am doing a kind of PowerPoint, bullet points situation here. So make sure that you read Smith in terms of the 9 parts of Judaism. I will expect a more complete answer when you take the test, and this will clearly be on it. So I would be quite familiar with it if I were you. All right, I will see you for Judaism part 4, and then you will be done with Judaism. All right, I'll see you later. Bye.